Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and our Houston Texans franchise in Madden 2003. I got some bad news for you guys. The Week 16 matchup against the Denver Broncos, that game was corrupted, unfortunately, so I cannot bring that to you, but we're going to take a look at the Pro Bowlers, the stats, the awards, all that good stuff. And we see Carson Palmer and Larry Johnson make the Pro Bowl. Justin Griffith, former Mississippi State Bulldog. Randy Moss makes the Pro Bowl at receiver. 11 touchdowns this season for us. And at tight end, the last tight end spot is filled by Billy Miller. All the hard work finally pays off. 43 catches, 766 yards, and 8 touchdowns this season. And that young man gets his first ever Pro Bowl appearance. Now, we do not have any offensive linemen on here because it's impossible to get the offensive line stats good enough so you can actually get your linemen in there in Pro Bowls. Let's take a look at the defense here. Albert Haynesworth, Jason Fisk, Dwayne Rudd. I don't think we actually have any Pro Bowlers on the defensive side of the football. Sure as hell aren't going to have any secondary players in the Pro Bowl because they were getting destroyed all season. Didn't matter who we were playing, what quarterback was throwing against us, we were getting torched. Charles Woodson, I believe he had 13 interceptions on the season. Sam Madison. Ed Reed, 8 interceptions, 1 touchdown. And he has 33 career interceptions so far in this franchise in only 4 seasons. That is insane. He also had 8 sacks on the year. Razuli Webster out of Oregon, I believe. Yep. He makes his first ever Pro Bowl. He had 4 picks and 3 sacks. Lawyer Malloy for the Patriots gets in there, and so does Greg Wesley. And we do not have any special teams players on here either. Probably should have had Sammy Parker on there for some punt returns for touchdowns, but he has never had a kick return for a touchdown in the regular season. Let's take a look at the NFC Pro Bowlers. Kurt Warner, Brett Favre, Cliff Kingsbury for the Seattle Seahawks makes his first career Pro Bowl appearance. He threw for over 3,200 yards, 26 touchdowns, and only 11 interceptions. Really good year for Cliff Kingsbury. Amon Green, Anthony A-Train Thomas, Mike Allstott, the other A-Train. Terrell Owens had 12 touchdowns this season. Freddie Mitchell, 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns. Todd Pinkston, so we got 2 Eagles at the receiver spot in the Pro Bowl. Donald Lee, former Mississippi State Bulldog as well, 86 receptions this season. My goodness. 3 touchdowns for the former Bulldog. So that is 2 former players from our Mississippi State dynasty that have made Pro Bowls. I believe this is Justin Griffith's second Pro Bowl appearance. Terrell Suggs had 14 sacks this season for Detroit. Oh my. 12 sacks for Hugh Douglas. He will be a free agent in the upcoming offseason. Might look to get him. We do need a defensive lineman. A premier pass rusher would really help out this team, I think, because we have a hard time getting to the quarterback. We did improve this season a little bit, but not as much as I'd like to. 103 tackles for Tommy Polley with 9 sacks. 7 sacks for Mark Simoneau. Jeremiah Trotter makes a Pro Bowl. Asante Samuel, 8 interceptions, 200 interception yards, and 2 touchdowns for Detroit. He doubled his career total for interceptions this season. He has 16 now. Brandon Everidge makes his first career Pro Bowl with 6 interceptions and 2 sacks. Former Oklahoma Sooner. Reggie Tongue makes the Pro Bowl at strong safety. Brett Conway attempted 47 field goals this season and made 38. Damon Duvall makes the Pro Bowl for the Saints at punter. Deuce McAllister makes the Pro Bowl as a kick returner. That's not something I'd ever see, but I think I would ever see. Chris Massey makes the Pro Bowl for the Falcons. Now let's check out the yearly award winners. Larry Johnson wins the NFL MVP, rushing for 2,060 yards. And he just had a phenomenal season for us. He carried this team. But Carson Palmer also had a great season. He gets 5th in the MVP voting with 3,680 yards and 34 touchdowns with a 125.4 rating. Larry Johnson also had 23 touchdowns on the season with a 7.1 yard average. Insane numbers. Charles Woodson, Defensive Player of the Year with 13 picks. Offensive Rookie of the Year, Cedric Benson, halfback for the Dallas Cowboys, former Texas Longhorn. Kelly Washington gets 2nd. He almost had 1,000 receiving yards. Willis McGahee runs for over 1,000 yards his rookie season and somehow does not get Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think it's because of the receiving yards. He only had 254. And Cedric Benson actually had 2 touchdowns with 365. So, I don't know. I think Willis McGahee should have been probably the number 1 spot there. Darren Sproles gets 4th, almost rushing for 1,000 yards. Only had 1 touchdown, though. 473 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns. And Anthony Davis for the Falcons gets 5th, former Wisconsin Badger. Ran for 827 yards, 4 touchdowns. Defensive Rookie of the Year, Michael Boley, right outside linebacker for the Jets. Antrell Roll gets 2nd place, and he didn't even play the entire season. Barrett Ruud, middle linebacker for the Ravens. Tommy Harris, defensive tackle for Carolina. And Marlon Jackson gets 5th for the Buffalo Bills at the cornerback spot. Bill Belichick wins Head Coach of the Year. Mike Shanahan is 2nd, and Andy Stump for Houston gets 3rd. Marty Mornhinweg gets 4th, and Andy Reid gets 5th. Best Quarterback of the Year, Carson Palmer wins that in a landslide over Peyton Manning. Had a great year for a lot of guys on offense this year. It was really our defense that let us down all season. But don't worry, we still have a playoff game. That will be out tomorrow. Randy Moss gets 3rd for Best Wide Receiver of the Year. A lot of tough competition. No offensive linemen, no defensive linemen. 12 sacks for Jimmy Kennedy, the defensive tackle, and 12 for Keith Traylor as well. Best linebacker, Hunter Hillenmeyer. I don't know if you guys remember, but he was on our squad for a year and didn't really play at all. He was just kind of filling a roster spot. He goes to Pittsburgh and gets 5th for Best Linebacker of the Year. That's crazy. And I believe his overall is only like a 60. Bill Gramatica gets Kicker of the Year for the NFL on the 6-10 Cardinals. Yeah, let's see what else we're going to take a look at here. Our team stats, Carson Palmer, 34 touchdowns, 9 picks. Matt Hasselbeck only threw the ball twice this season and had a touchdown, I believe. Or at least a really long completion. Long of 84 this year for Carson Palmer. Palmer also had 217 yards rushing with 2 touchdowns. He had more yards than Willie Parker and Justin Fargas. That is crazy. 5 fumbles for Palmer, 2 for Larry Johnson. Palmer had 10 broken tackles. Johnson had 128 and 1,000 yards after first contact. That is crazy. Most players don't even get 1,000 yards in a season. Billy Miller, 43 catches, 766 yards, career high with 8 touchdowns. Randy Moss got 1,276 yards on only 60 receptions. A lot of these receivers will be gone most likely after the playoffs, depending on how they perform. We really need a true number 2 receiver, and I just don't think Jabbar Gaffney is that guy. I don't think Sammy Parker is that guy either. He is more of a slot receiver. we're not really going to touch the offensive line in the offseason. We might look to pick up another right guard. Charles Tillman had 100 tackles this year. 40 more than he had last season for us with 2 picks, 23 deflections, no forced fumbles or recovers. Sean Taylor, 86 tackles. Marcus Washington, 84. But we did see Marcus Washington miss a lot of tackles this season. He probably would have had 120 tackles if he didn't miss any. Maurice Sykes, 52 tackles, 2 picks. I did user him all season. I had 11 deflections with him as well. 4 tackles for a loss. Landon Johnson, we're probably going to look to get him some more playing time next season. He's really been pretty good for us anytime he's been on the field. Sam Adams will probably be gone after this year. Only 1 tackle for loss, 1 sack this season. Kendrick Clancy will most likely be gone as well. He only had 1 tackle this year, and it was a sack. 15 tackles for a loss for Marcus Washington, 13 for DJ Williams on the season. Corey Redding led the team in sacks yet again with 6, 3 less than he had last year. He also had 14 tackles. Will Smith, career high 5 sacks. He had 2 more this season than he did last year. He has a career total of 8. And we didn't sack the quarterback a whole lot, but I feel like we're improving a little bit. We're getting some more players in there to get some sacks. Rania Whitaker getting through on some nickel corner blitzes. Lynn Magruder, 2 tackles, 2 sacks on the season. DJ Williams, 3 interceptions for his career so far. That is more than he had in his entire career in real life. I believe he had 2. Randy Starks had a sack, 7 tackles, 1 tackle for a loss. Terry Fair even got in there and got a sack. His 2nd career sack, the first since 1998. Dang. Antrell Roll led the team in interceptions with 3. Tillman had 2, Mo Sykes had 2, and Sean Taylor had 2, so he's only got 4 career interceptions for us. I really thought that he'd come out and perform a little bit better than that, especially with the 99 overall. But he does make the most of those interceptions with a 104-yarder for a touchdown. He also had 13 deflections on the season, but no forced fumbles this year. Only 5 forced fumbles for our team this season, and only recovering 2 of them. No blocks, no safeties. We had 5 defensive touchdowns, all by secondary players, except for Carlos Dansby, who had that fumble recovery for a touchdown on a kickoff. Max DePace was 15 of 20. He only missed 5 field goals, but it really felt like he missed about 15 this season. It was kind of disappointing after he went 21 of 24 last season and was snubbed for the Pro Bowl. 3rd-year kicker out of Georgia Tech. So I guess his 3rd season wasn't as terrible as I thought, but it really felt like it was. Terry Fair, over 1,000 kick return yards for us this season, along with 99 with 2 touchdowns. Sammy Parker, 352 yards on punt returns for 3 touchdowns. And he has 5 career punt returns for touchdowns and has yet to get one on a kickoff return. Now let's take a look at the NFL leaders. Carson Palmer, number 1 in quarterback rating. Peyton Manning, number 1 in passing yards. Tom Brady was 40 yards behind him, and Palmer was 39 yards behind him. Or 29 yards, excuse me. Quincy Carter was 6th in the league for passing yards. That's kind of shocking. Cliff Kingsbury, 4th in the league for touchdowns with 26. David Carr only threw 6 interceptions this year, but he did miss quite a few games due to injury. 64 completion percentage. Not having a bad career, but he does have an injury bug, kind of. Joey Harrington threw 25 picks. Casey Clausen threw 24. So did Quincy Carter. Byron Leftwich threw 23. Eli Manning threw the ball 577 times this season for the Carolina Panthers. Best completion percentage in the league, Cliff Kingsbury with a 66 completion percentage. Very nice, Cliff. He's having a good season this year. I'm not sure if the Seahawks made the playoffs or not, but we're going to take a look at that. Peyton Manning, most yards per game. David Carr was 6th, so he would have done really good for himself if he wasn't injured. Eli Manning sacked 51 times. Wow. Carson Palmer, longest pass on the season was 84 yards. And Corey Dillon actually ran for 2,000 yards as well, but only had 12 touchdowns compared to Larry Johnson's 23. So Corey Dillon, at this point in his career, is a surefire Hall of Famer. Ricky Williams, 1,654 yards, 15 touchdowns. That was good for second in the league. Fred Taylor, 12 touchdowns, 1,426 yards. Corey Dillon ran the ball almost 400 times. Best average was Larry Johnson, no surprise there. Most yards in yards per game, Larry Johnson. Most fumbles this season was Kurt Warner with 12. Zahir Hakeem had 10. So did Tim Couch and Eli Manning. Let's go ahead and see who the first halfback we can find, and that was Trunk Candidate, and he had 6 fumbles, and so did Tiki Barber. Wow. Broken tackles, Larry Johnson led the league with 128. Corey Dillon was 2 behind him with 126. Yards after first contact, not even close. Larry Johnson wins that one by a mile. 20-plus yards runs, Larry Johnson with 23. Longest run of the season, LeBrandon Tofield with a 92-yarder. Daniel Graham leads the NFL in receptions with 102, the big tight end for the New England Patriots, and he was 14 yards shy of 1,000, and he had 4 touchdowns. Marvin Harrison had the most yards receiving this season with over 1,500. He also had 11 touchdowns. Reggie Wayne was 6th, so 2 Indianapolis Colts on that list. Touchdowns on the season, Terrell Owens was first with 12, Randy Moss and Marvin Harrison tied for second with 11, and 3 players had 10. Yards per game, Torrey Holt, number 1, Marvin Harrison, number 2. Quentin Griffin on there, 3rd place for yards after catch with 662, and the rookie Darren Sproles for the Redskins at 546 with an 8.8 yards after catch average. 10 drops for Andre Johnson this season for the Cardinals, 10 for Brian Carter, who still made the Pro Bowl somehow, and 10 for DeVar Darling, the rookie. Roy Williams had 8 drops for the Cowboys. Longest reception was Larry Johnson. Frank Gore had an 80-yard reception this season, longest of his career. 66 pancakes for, was it Jeff Harding or Jason? It was too quickly. Showed too quickly. I don't want to look at it. Nobody cares about the O-line. Not their stats, at least. 15 tackles for loss was most in the NFL. It was Marcus Washington and DJ Williams right behind him at number 2, tied with 3 other players. Most sacks in the season was Terrell Suggs with 14. He has double that he had last year, so he's got 21 for his career. He's up to a 90 overall. So 2 Detroit Lions had 12 or more sacks. 26 combined sacks. Charles Woodson led the league in interceptions with 13. No surprise there. Mike Doss actually had an interception against us last week that sealed the win as Carson Palmer tried to hit Billy Miller in the back of the end zone to tie the ball game up at 35 points. Instead, it was picked off by Mike Doss, and we would lose 35-28, and we are the number 3 seed in the playoffs, and Denver wins that game and wins the number 2 seed for the playoffs. Larry Johnson only had 44 yards on the ground for us last week in the game that you guys will not see. On, I think, 12 carries, so he really got stuffed all game. So we had to put in Willie Parker for a little bit, try to get some explosion some explosive plays, something. And it just wasn't working. There's Hunter Hillenmeyer with a 64 overall. It's 78 tackles, 8 sacks. His overall is going to jump up to 80 probably. He's had a phenomenal season for the Steelers. If you guys are still watching this video, congratulations. You made it past the 20-minute mark. I don't know how, because I'm about to fall asleep looking at all these stats, but I will push through. Bunch of blocks this season. We have yet to see one in our franchise. We have yet to see a safety as well. Hunter Hillenmeyer had a safety too. My goodness, he was all over the field this season for Pittsburgh. And a bunch of kicker stats nobody cares about. Josh Scobie with 35. Matt Prater, rookie for the Saints, hit 35 field goals out of 43 attempts. Longest field goal of the season was 56 yards. A bunch of players had that one. 2 kickers had 2 blocked kicks. Max DePace was 70 of 70 for extra points this season. 4 extra points were blocked for the year. Josh Scobie made 10 50-plus yard field goals on the season. And nobody really cares about punting stats, so we're going to skip that. Kick returners, 60 kick returns for Azahir Hakeem. But Deuce McAllister has the most yards. Terry Fair has the most touchdowns with 2. And Teo Johnson is tied with him. It's crazy to me that they had him on kick returns. He's 6'7", 246. Look at this. 7 catches, 65 yards on the year for the rookie. 7 tackles and a pick with 3 deflections. They had him playing safety or linebacker, something crazy. He's also on punt returns, all over the field. Hines Ward had a kick return for a touchdown. So did Steve Smith, Vernon Coles, Lito Shepard, Ashley Lilly. And punt returns, moving on. Deuce McAllister, 831 yards, that led the league. I can see why he made the Pro Bowl. Sammy Parker led the league in punt returns for touchdowns with 3. Nobody else had more than 1. And that's going to be it for the stats, awards, the Pro Bowlers, all that jazz. This is the wild card round. We will be taking on the Indianapolis Colts in Houston. That game will be out tomorrow. And I will also be simulating the other 3 games for the wild card round, so you'll see those tomorrow as well. We got the Rams taking on the Packers in Green Bay. We've got the Kansas City Chiefs traveling to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. And a 9-7 matchup here as the Giants travel to take on the San Francisco 49ers. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Tomorrow, wild card round. Stay tuned. It's going to be a crazy game. I've already played it. And I think you guys are going to be shocked at some of the plays and stats out of this game against the Colts. But until then, I will see you guys in the comments section below. Take it easy, guys.